You need to listen closely to what I'm about to tell you, because this idea, this single truth, has built more successful men than talent, luck, motivation, or opportunity ever has. It's called radical self-responsibility. And if you absorb it, if you let it hit you, if you stop running from it, your life will never look the same again. Radical self-responsibility means this: everything in your life is your fault. Every victory, every failure, every moment you felt stuck, every result you have or don't have yours. Not society's, not your family's, not your bosses, not your childhood's, not your circumstances, yours. Now at first, that sounds harsh, it sounds unfair. But the men who rise in life are the ones who stop hiding behind the illusion of fairness. They understand that blaming anything outside themselves is just a comfortable way to avoid changing. And here's the part most people never understand. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you're guilty. It means you're powerful. It means you have control. When you blame the world, you hand your power away. When you say, "My life is the way it is because of them," what you're really saying is, "I can't change anything because I'm not in control." And once that mindset takes root, your life becomes nothing but a slow decline. A man who believes he cannot change his life will not try. A man who believes he has no control will not fight. A man who believes he is powerless becomes powerless. Radical self-responsibility flips that entire script. Suddenly, instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you start seeing yourself as the architect of outcomes. If your life is your fault, then you can fix it. If your situation is your doing, then it's also your undoing. If your results are your creation, then your success is your potential creation. This is where real empowerment begins. But here's the uncomfortable truth: most people don't want to be responsible, even for their own greatness, because responsibility destroys excuses. Responsibility forces you to admit that you've been wasting time. Responsibility forces you to face the habits you've let control you. Responsibility forces you to confront how many opportunities you've ignored, avoided, or talked yourself out of. It exposes the version of you that you pretend isn't there. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I'll start tomorrow"? How many times have you convinced yourself that you're too tired, too busy, too stressed, too unlucky? How many times have you looked at someone doing better than you and whispered a reason why it's easier for them than it is for you? Every single one of those moments was a refusal to take responsibility, and every refusal was another chain added to your ankles. Radical self-responsibility breaks those chains. It forces you to see the truth. No one is coming to change your circumstances. No one is coming to push you. No one is coming to motivate you. You are the only force capable of transforming your reality. But you cannot measure your potential until you first measure your own accountability. Imagine two men. One man blames everything: his past, his environment, his parents, his lack of opportunities. He might be smart. He might even have talent. But every time something goes wrong, he looks outward instead of inward. And because he never accepts that he has control, he never becomes more than he currently is. The second man, though he looks at his life and says, "If it's happening to me, it's because I allowed it. If I'm broke, it's my decisions. If I'm out of shape, it's my habits. If I'm alone, it's my standards. If I'm underperforming, it's my discipline." That man, whether he starts at the bottom or the middle or in the dirt with nothing, will rise. Not because he's lucky, but because responsibility forces evolution. Responsibility makes you honest with yourself. You stop lying about how hard you're working. You stop pretending that scrolling on your phone is rest. You stop telling yourself that you'll start when things get easier. You stop waiting for motivation to magically show up. You stop believing that someone else will fix your problems. And here's the beautiful part: when you take full responsibility, the world stops being overwhelming. Your problems stop feeling like they're chasing you. Suddenly, you're the one moving towards solutions instead of running from challenges. Stress becomes manageable because you no longer see obstacles as an attack, you see them as indicators. Indicators that you need to shift, improve, or strengthen something within yourself. Radical responsibility gives you clarity. You start seeing exactly where you're slipping. You start recognizing the habits that are failing you. You catch yourself when you're choosing comfort over progress. You know when you're lying to yourself, and you can't unknow it. That awareness is uncomfortable. but it's necessary. Growth only happens when you're brave enough to confront the parts of yourself that you've ignored for years. And as you grow, you begin to notice something powerful. Momentum. Because responsibility breeds action. Action breeds results. Results breed confidence. And confidence breeds the hunger to push further. At that point, you stop looking outward completely. You stop caring who notices. You stop caring who supports you. You stop caring who doubts you. Your standards become internal, not external. Your discipline becomes personal, not performative. Your life stops being something that happens to you and starts becoming something you design piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. That is radical self-responsibility. And once you adopt it, once you live by it, once you let it redefine the relationship you have with yourself, you become a different kind of man entirely. You need to understand something that most people never realize until life has already beaten them down. Every difficulty you're facing right now, every setback you think is unfair, every uncomfortable moment you wish would disappear is not there to destroy you. It's there to prepare you. Your problems aren't roadblocks. They're training. They're the resistance your character has to push against to grow. And the reason so many men stay weak is because they treat training like punishment instead of preparation. Think about how muscles grow. You lift weight that is heavier than you are comfortable with. You push against resistance that hurts, stretches, strains, and makes you want to quit. But the more you push, the stronger you get. Pain is proof that progress is happening. Now imagine someone walking into the gym, picking up a weight, feeling discomfort, and immediately putting it down, saying, "This is too much. This isn't fair." That is how most men live their entire lives. They want strength without struggle, growth without resistance, success without suffering. And that's exactly why they never become anything more than average. Your problems are shaping you in the same way the weight shapes the muscle. Every challenge is a form of resistance designed to reveal your potential. Every difficulty is pushing you toward a stronger version of yourself. But you'll never see the benefit if all you focus on is the discomfort. A man who avoids challenge avoids growth. A man who tries to escape his problems escapes the chance to become powerful. What you need to realize is that life doesn't test the strong. Life creates the strong through tests. It throws challenges at you not to break you, but to build your endurance. It throws hardship your way not because you're unlucky, but because you're capable of more. It puts you in uncomfortable situations because comfort has never transformed anyone. There is no greatness without pressure. There is no evolution without friction. And the men who rise in this world are the ones who stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Look back at your life. Think about the moments that changed you. Think about the times you became smarter, tougher, more resilient. None of those moments came from ease. They came from challenges that forced you to confront yourself, struggles that pushed you past your limits, situations that demanded strength you didn't even know you had until you were forced to use it. That's what your problems are doing right now. Whether you see it or not, they are forging you into someone more capable than the version of you who existed yesterday. Most people run from pain. They run from discomfort. They run from conflict, difficulty, pressure. They think life will get easier if they hide long enough. But running doesn't make your problems disappear. It only delays the growth you were supposed to gain from facing them. When you run from the challenge, you run from the upgrade that comes with conquering it. When you avoid resistance, you avoid the strength that resistance was meant to give you. This is why people stay the same for years, because they're constantly dodging the very situations that would have made them unstoppable. But something changes the moment you flip your perspective. When you start seeing problems as preparation instead of punishment, the entire game shifts. Suddenly, you're not afraid of pressure. You're not intimidated by difficulty. You're not broken when life becomes heavy. You start to welcome the challenge because you understand that nothing great is ever built in comfort. The men you admire, the ones who achieve something worth talking about, all have one thing in common: they were shaped by adversity, not protected from it. Think of every successful man you know. He wasn't handed strength. He wasn't handed confidence. He wasn't handed resilience. He built it. He was sculpted by hardship, sharpened by setbacks, refined by failure. He looked at his problems and realized they were invitations to rise instead of excuses to quit. He didn't pray for an easier life. He built himself into a stronger man. You need to do the same. When life hits you, don't fall apart. Analyze it, study it, understand what's happening. Ask yourself why this moment was placed in front of you. Ask what weakness this challenge is exposing. Ask what strength it's trying to pull out of you. Because life will only test the areas you need to strengthen. If you feel unprepared, good. If you feel overwhelmed, good. If the situation feels bigger than you, good. That means you're being stretched. You're being pushed. You're being shaped into something beyond your current limitations. Growth never happens inside what is familiar. It always happens where you're uncomfortable. There will be moments when you feel like everything is falling apart, like nothing is working, like the pressure is too heavy. But pressure creates diamonds. Hardship creates warriors. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you are being molded into a man who can carry more, handle more, achieve more, and endure more than you ever imagined. Your problems are not there to stop you. They're there to strengthen you. And the sooner you embrace that truth, the sooner you'll rise into the man you were meant to become. There's a hard truth you need to accept if you ever want to rise above the level of an ordinary man. Motivation is unreliable. It's emotional. It's temporary. It comes in waves. And just like waves, it crashes and disappears when you need it most. But discipline is the one thing that doesn't care how you feel. Discipline is the foundation every great man builds his life on. Discipline is the difference between saying you want something and actually achieving it. Everyone loves the idea of becoming successful. Everyone loves to talk about their goals, their dreams, their visions. But the gap between wanting and having is not bridged by motivation. It's bridged by disciplined action. Anyone can work when they feel inspired. Anyone can be productive when life feels exciting. Anyone can show up when everything is easy. But what about the days when you wake up tired? What about the moments when you feel empty? What about the times when your emotions tell you to quit? In those moments, motivation abandons you. Discipline is the only thing that stays. Discipline doesn't ask if you're in the mood. It doesn't ask if you slept enough. It doesn't ask if people believe in you. It doesn't ask if the weather is good, or if you're stressed, or if your life is chaotic. Discipline only asks one question: did you do what needed to be done? This is why so many people fail. They think success is about feeling ready. They think you need to wake up inspired. They think the universe will magically align their emotions with their responsibilities. But the universe doesn't care about your feelings. Life doesn't pause just because you're tired. The world doesn't wait for your enthusiasm to return. Successful men know this. They don't rely on emotion. They rely on structure. They rely on systems. They rely on the identity they build through disciplined repetition. And here's a truth you need to swallow. Most men lose not because they lack talent, but because they lack discipline. They can't say no to distraction. They can't stay consistent. They can't push forward when everything in their body whispers, "Take it easy." They choose comfort over progress, and comfort quietly destroys potential. Think about this. How many times have you set a goal while feeling motivated? You told yourself you would wake up early, go to the gym, start the project, cut the bad habits. And for a few days, maybe even a week, you kept up with it. But then something happened. You got tired. You lost excitement. Life got busy. Suddenly, that fire you felt in the beginning faded. That's the problem with motivation. It doesn't stay. It never stays. And if your entire life depends on it, your life will never be stable. Discipline is different. Discipline is a choice, not a feeling. Discipline is the ability to say, I don't want to do this right now, but I'll do it anyway. That single sentence is the dividing line between people who dream and people who achieve. Discipline doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. It makes you capable of pushing through moments where weaker men collapse. And the truth is, discipline builds something motivation never can: identity. When you show up consistently, when you follow through, when you keep your promises to yourself, you begin to see yourself differently. You no longer see a man who tries. You see a man who does. You no longer see someone who hopes. You see someone who executes. You no longer rely on bursts of energy because your character becomes stronger than your emotions. Most men live their lives waiting for the right moment, the right mental state, the perfect mood. They wait for clarity. They wait for energy. They wait for something outside themselves to push them forward. That's why they lose. The men who win are the ones who understand that discipline creates the moment, not the other way around. When you show up every day, regardless of how you feel, you create momentum, you create progress, you create opportunity. Motivation might spark the fire, but discipline keeps it burning long after the spark disappears. There will be days when the world feels heavy, days when you feel exhausted, days when everything seems to go wrong. Those are the moments that separate average from exceptional. Anyone can be disciplined on a good day. True discipline is forged on the bad ones. When you don't quit on those days, you become the kind of man who cannot be shaken by circumstances. A man who is consistent becomes unstoppable because consistency compounds. A little progress every day becomes a lot of progress over time. Discipline transforms who you are, not instantly, but inevitably. You need to understand that discipline is not punishment. Discipline is freedom. Discipline frees you from the chaos of emotions. Discipline frees you from the trap of laziness. Discipline frees you from inconsistency, regret, and wasted potential. It frees you from the life you don't want and guides you toward the life you do. Discipline is the act of loving your future self enough to endure discomfort today. You're going to reach a point where motivation fails you, everyone does. What will define you is whether your discipline carries you through the moments where feelings fall apart. Because when your emotions give up, your habits take over. And the habits you build through discipline will determine the man you become. There is a truth most men never learn until it's too late. The world does not care what you intend to do. It doesn't care what you wish for, what you hope for, or what you dream about. The world rewards one thing and one thing only: action, movement, execution, the willingness to get up, step forward, and do something even when you're tired, scared, unsure, or imperfect. Because in reality, ideas are worthless without action. Potential is meaningless without action. Ambition is nothing but noise until you turn it into motion. Every single day, millions of people talk about what they're going to do someday. They talk about starting the business, getting in shape, improving their life, changing their habits, becoming successful. They fill their heads with fantasies of who they could be, but they never take a single step toward becoming that person. They confuse talking with doing. They confuse dreaming with building. They confuse desire with discipline. And because of that illusion, their lives never change. You need to understand how brutal and honest the world is. Results come only to the man who moves, not to the man who hesitates, not to the man who complains, not to the man who waits for the perfect timing. If you sit still, your life stays still. If you do nothing, nothing happens. Success is not an accident. It is not fate. It is not luck falling from the sky. Success is the product of consistent movement towards something you want, even when you feel unprepared, even when you feel alone, even when no one is watching. Think about the opportunities you've missed, not because you were incapable, but because you didn't act. Think about the moments you knew exactly what you needed to do, but found a reason to delay it. Maybe you told yourself you weren't ready. Maybe you feared failure. Maybe you waited for motivation. Every moment you hesitated was a moment someone else moved. Someone else took the chance. Someone else got the position, the client, the progress, the momentum that could have been yours. Action builds opportunities, but hesitation gives them away. And here's what's even more important: action creates clarity. Most people want their entire path illuminated before they take their first step. They want certainty. They want guarantees. They want a roadmap with every turn marked in advance. But life doesn't work like that. You don't gain clarity first. You gain clarity by moving. You understand the path by walking it. You learn what works and what doesn't by trying. Every step reveals the next. Every action teaches you something. Every attempt brings you closer to mastery. Some men never start because they want perfection. They want everything to be flawless before they begin. But perfection is the enemy of progress. If you wait for perfect conditions, you will die waiting. If you wait until you feel fully ready, you'll never begin. The men who win aren't the ones who waited until everything made sense. They're the ones who started anyway. They're the ones who were willing to look foolish at first. They're the ones who accepted that progress requires mistakes, adjustments, and learning through doing. There's a reason action is more powerful than thought. Thought stays inside your head. Action reshapes the world around you. Action builds experience. Action builds confidence. Action builds resilience. The more you move, the more momentum you create. And momentum is the hidden force behind every major transformation. Once you start building it, things begin to align, opportunities appear, people notice, doors open. Not because the universe suddenly favors you, but because you're finally giving it something to work with. Most men sabotage themselves with overthinking. They analyze, doubt, worry, hesitate, reconsider, then end up doing nothing. They replay the same fears over and over. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work? What will people say? But they never ask the more dangerous question. What happens if I stay exactly where I am? What happens if nothing changes? What happens if I keep living the same year on repeat? That is the true risk. That is the true danger. Inaction is more destructive than failure. Failure moves you forward. Inaction freezes you in place. Failure teaches you something. Inaction teaches you nothing. Failure builds experience. Inaction builds regret. The man who fails 10 times will always be ahead of the man who never tried once, because the man who acts learns, adapts, and grows. The man who does nothing just gets older. And here's the secret: no one tells you action creates identity. The more you take action, the more you start seeing yourself as someone capable, someone disciplined, someone reliable. You become a man who does, not a man who talks. You become a man who solves problems, not avoids them. You become a man whose life is built on effort, not excuses. And when you start to identify as a person of action, the entire world begins to respond differently to you. People respect action. Opportunities are attracted to action. Progress is built on action. Everything you want, every goal, every dream, every future version of yourself is waiting on the other side of one thing: movement. Not motivation, not perfection, not planning, movement. You can change your entire life with one decision repeated consistently, one step taken daily, one action carried out when you least feel like it. That's the difference between the man you are and the man you want to become. There is a reason so many men feel stuck, unmotivated, unfocused, and directionless. It's not because they're incapable. It's not because they're unlucky. It's because the modern world is intentionally engineered to distract you into weakness. Everywhere you turn, something is pulling at your attention, dragging your mind away from your purpose, breaking your discipline, draining your ambition. And if you don't learn how to control your attention will control you. Look around you. You are living in a world where entertainment is unlimited, food is unlimited, comfort is unlimited, distraction is unlimited. And the irony is that the more comfortable the world becomes, the weaker men become. The more options you have to numb yourself, the less you build the ability to discipline yourself. The easier it becomes to escape your problems, the less capable you become of facing them. This world has been designed to keep you glued to screens, chasing dopamine, chasing distraction, chasing anything that keeps you from confronting the truth that you're not living at your highest potential. Every app, every platform, every feed, every notification is competing for your focus, and the moment you let them win, you lose. You lose your time, you lose your energy, you lose your drive. And what's even worse is that you don't lose it all at once. You lose yourself slowly, quietly, inch by inch, day by day, until one morning you wake up and wonder where your ambition went. Men today don't lack goals, they lack clarity. They lack direction because their minds are constantly pulled in 100 different directions. And that's not an accident. If you're distracted, you're compliant. If you're unfocused, you're predictable. If you're mentally weak, you're easily controlled. A man who can't focus can't build. A man who can't disconnect can't grow. A man who can't control his impulses becomes a slave to them. Think about how many hours you've lost to mindless scrolling. Think about how many mornings you said you'd wake up early but didn't. Think about how many nights you stayed up late consuming content instead of creating your future. Think about how many days you promised yourself would be productive but became nothing more than a blur of distractions. Those hours weren't stolen from you. You gave them away. Every minute you spend being distracted is a minute another man is using to get ahead. While you're scrolling, he's building. While you're wasting time, he's sharpening his skills. While you're drowning in noise, he's moving in silence. Success isn't about being the smartest or the strongest. It's about being the most focused. It's about the man who can sit down, cut the noise, and do the work that everyone else avoids because they're too addicted to cheap stimulation. You don't need more ambition. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer distractions. You need to take back your mind, because the strongest version of yourself is always buried under layers of noise, entertainment, impulses, and habits that you've accepted as normal. But normal is the enemy of greatness. Normal is scrolling for hours. Normal is chasing pleasure instead of purpose. Normal is wasting your potential because discipline feels uncomfortable. The truth is, discomfort is the price of clarity. When you remove distractions, you're forced to face your reality. You're forced to see what you've been avoiding. You're forced to confront the gap between the man you are and the man you want to be. And that confrontation is the beginning of transformation. Clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from subtracting everything that clouds your mind. That means cutting out the things that weaken you, whether they're apps, people, habits, or environments. It means controlling your time with intention instead of letting the world hijack your attention. It means guarding your focus like a treasure, because it is a treasure. Your focus determines your future. The man who can concentrate deeply can achieve anything. The man who can't will achieve nothing. And here's the part most men avoid. Distractions aren't just external, they're internal. Your mind will distract you with comfort, with excuses, with urges, with cravings. You're not just fighting algorithms, you're fighting your own impulses. But every time you choose discipline over distraction, every time you silence the noise around you, every time you prioritize your purpose over your pleasure, you reclaim a piece of your power. You become harder to manipulate, harder to tempt, harder to weaken. If you want to become a man who rises, you have to become a man who can focus. You have to train your mind the same way you train your body. You have to build mental strength by resisting the urge to waste your time. You have to embrace boredom, because boredom is where creativity lives. You have to embrace stillness, because stillness is where clarity emerges. You have to embrace silence, because silence is where you hear the voice of your ambition again. The world may be designed to keep you weak, but you don't have to live weak. You can choose to disconnect. You can choose to sharpen your mind. You can choose to take back control, because the moment you master your attention, you master your life. Listen carefully, because this is the part most people pretend they understand, but almost no one actually lives by. Success is not built in the moments when people are cheering you on. It's not built when someone is clapping for you, validating you, or reminding you what needs to be done. Success is forged in silence, in isolation, during the hours when the world isn't paying attention. Every man wants success, but very few are willing to be the kind of man who stays disciplined when the spotlight is off. You want a different life, then you need a different level of discipline, one that doesn't depend on anyone else noticing your effort. Imagine a man who only trains when his friends join him at the gym. A man who only works hard when his boss is watching. A man who only cleans up his act when a woman enters his life. That man will never win, because he lives off borrowed motivation. And the problem with borrowed motivation is that the moment the source disappears, the motivation disappears with it. Discipline is not built on inspiration. It is built on responsibility, on the understanding that no one is coming to reward you for simply showing up. The world rewards results, not attempts, and those results come from the habits you maintain when no one is checking whether you kept them. Think about the greatest improvements in your life so far. They didn't come from the comfortable moments. They didn't come when things were easy. They came when you dug deeper than you thought possible. Discipline is the force that pushes you 2 steps forward, even when the world pushes you 5 steps back. It's the force that wakes you up before the alarm, that forces you to stay focused when your brain craves distraction, that tells you to get your life together when excuses start whispering in your ear. It's not because it's fun. It's because the man you want to be is found on the other side of the habits you keep repeating. Picture yourself alone in your room, late at night. You have goals. You have dreams. You have ambitions that could change your entire future. But right there in that moment, no one is watching. No one is applauding. No one is asking if you followed through. It's just you versus you. That is the battlefield where discipline is tested, and most men lose this battle because they are addicted to being seen. They want the world to know they're working. They want credit for trying. They want sympathy when they fail. But real discipline doesn't need witnesses. Real discipline doesn't need recognition. Real discipline is invisible. It's the quiet hours that no one hears about. It's the internal war no one knows you're fighting. You want to know why the top 1% win? It's because they treat every day like an exam they must pass, even though no one is grading them. They train like the world is watching, even when the room is empty. They work when they're sick. They move forward when they're tired. They stay sharp even when life feels dull. They don't need applause to stay consistent. Their standards are higher than any praise the world could give them. Most men fail because they wait for motivation. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait for the emotional high to kick in before taking action. Discipline does not wait. Discipline moves first and feelings catch up later. You don't brush your teeth because you're inspired. You do it because it's routine, because it's required. Success works the same way. The problem is that people treat success like a mood instead of a responsibility. And as long as you depend on your mood, your life will always be unstable. Discipline does not negotiate. It does not ask how you feel. It asks what must be done, and it demands that you do it. Understand something important. Discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. The man who does a small amount every day will outrun the man who does a massive amount once a week. The world glorifies bursts of effort, but it's the silent, repetitive actions that shape your destiny. Even when you're bored, even when progress feels slow, even when no one else acknowledges the grind, you want to know what makes a man powerful. It's not the moments where he shines. It's the moments where he perseveres in complete darkness. And there's another truth you need to swallow. Your habits are always training you. Every time you hit snooze, you're training yourself to lose. Every time you procrastinate, you're sharpening the blade that will destroy your opportunities. Every time you indulge in distractions, you reinforce the identity of a man who lacks control. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about direction. Are your habits leading you toward the man you want to become, or are they pulling you toward the man you fear becoming? Think about the life you say you want. The wealth, the freedom, the health, the respect. These things don't come to the man who works only when he feels like it. They come to the man who creates a structure and stays loyal to it. The man whose discipline outlives his excuses. The man who uses solitude as fuel, not as a reason to collapse. The man who understands that the most important battles of his life will be fought without an audience. So now you understand the truth most men spend their entire lives running from. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to make your life easier. Nobody is coming to pull you out of the hole you climbed into. The world isn't waiting to hand you success. It's waiting to see what kind of man you become when life stops giving you instructions. Everything you want, everything you dream about, everything you complain about not having it all comes down to the choices you make and the discipline you show from this moment forward. You can keep living like the average man, hoping someone notices your potential, hoping someone gives you a chance, hoping life magically improves on its own. Or you can decide to become the kind of man who forces life to acknowledge him. The kind of man who builds momentum through action, who creates opportunity through effort, who rises not because he was chosen, but because he refused to settle. The kind of man who takes responsibility so seriously that excuses can no longer survive in his presence. Every struggle you faced, every setback you've experienced, every disappointment you've carried, they were not signs of weakness. They were invitations to step into a stronger version of yourself. But you have to accept that invitation. You have to push when your mind screams for comfort. You have to move forward even when the world is pulling you back. You have to build discipline so unbreakable that the universe has no choice but to reward your consistency. Look at your life right now. Look at where you've been. Look at where you want to go. The distance between those 2 points is not luck, it's not talent, it's not motivation. It's discipline, responsibility, and relentless action. The man who wins is the man who shows up every single day, even when nobody claps, nobody watches, nobody cares. Because he knows that the world eventually bends for the man who refuses to bend for it. This is your wake-up call. This is the moment you stop looking for a hero and start becoming one. You don't need saving. You need direction. You need focus. You need commitment. And everything you need is already inside you, buried underneath years of hesitation and comfort. Dig it out. Ignite it. Build a life you keep imagining in your head, brick by disciplined brick, move by deliberate move, day by day, until the man you are finally matches the man you've been pretending you could be. No more waiting. No more wishing. No more excuses. The world will not hand you success, but it will get out of your way the moment you decide to take it.